skip that video. If we have time, we'll come back to it. So has anyone ever seen this before? This is kind of like the bell curve, right? We've all seen the bell curve. But has anyone ever heard of the Yerkes-Dodson law at all? So I said something earlier that kind of surprised a lot of you, could tell based on the reactions, is that stress is only good when we're in a life-threatening situation, right? If your life is actually on the line, then you want to experience that stress response, and that's why it's there, right? The adrenaline will turn on, and then it causes all these changes that help us get out of the situation. Does anybody know where, just kind of a random question, anybody know where the adrenaline is actually stored in the body? Yeah, above the kidneys, we have adrenal glands, and that's where the adrenaline is stored. And it's for emergency situations, right? Now, some people like to say, well, I need a little stress, I need a little adrenaline to kind of get me excited for a ball game or something. And that's true. Like, a little adrenaline is good, right? We need a little bit of a push in life. And that's kind of what this is all about, is that when we're bored, if this x-axis is the stress, think of this as the stress, and then the y-axis is the performance, we need a certain amount of stress to kind of kick us into gear to perform at a high level. If I just say to you guys, okay, I'm going to give this presentation, it's going to be interesting, but you don't have to worry about knowing any of the information. That's kind of what it is. I guess you're here for your own professional development, but you don't, if I said this to a class of students, right, you don't need to know this. It's just a presentation I'm going to give. It's interesting. Listen if you want. You don't have to listen if you don't want to. Go ahead and play cards. You don't have to worry. That's probably not going to be enough to get students to perform at a high level, right? But if, on the other hand, I say, this is your grade today. Whatever you get on this test, this is what you're going to get in this class. Now, all of a sudden, I've taken it in reverse, and now they're going to be over here. So we want to give them enough stress so that they hit the optimal level. Now, I don't call this over here stress. I call this excitement. To me, stress is when you get here, when it starts to impact performance, right? Some of you guys have probably heard of eustress, positive stress. That's what psychologists call it. And then this would be the negative stress, the distress, we call that. But here's the thing. This is going to be different based on different individuals. So Tommy's performance, this is going to have a different graph than Susie's graph. And it's going to be different based on the task. If the task is boxing, this is going to be shifted, right? But if the task is golf, this is going to be really to the left. You don't want to be all stressed and anxious when you're hitting a golf ball, right? Anybody play golf? Right? What happens in golf when you get mad? You get frustrated. You start to play worse, right? You start to play worse. All of a sudden, it impacts your performance negatively, right? And you want to be relaxed in golf. That's a sport where you just want to focus on the next shot, focus on the task at hand. And that's kind of what we want the students to be doing in math, focusing on that task at hand. So this is something that's important for us. Now, the challenge that we face in math class is every student's got a different graph, right? So one of the things that I like to do is test corrections. And I give them half their points back for correcting it. Now, for some students, that's really good. For other students, they may actually be over here because of that. They may be thinking, well, I don't need to perform as well now because I get to correct this anyways for half my points back. And that may be in the back of their head, and then they may not perform as well. But other students, it calms them down. They're like, well, if I don't do well on this test, that's okay because I'll be able to correct it for half my points back. So that'll be okay. And by the way, I do test corrections for high school and the college classes that I do. And the college students are just shocked. They've never had an instructor allow them to do test corrections before. But I look at it as, you correct your test in class, and then you have to do another set of questions that are similar to the ones you got wrong. And then if they do that, they get, in college, I do 1/3 of the points back. I don't do half points back. But in high school classes, I do half the points back. And what I do, by the way, is I give a test once a week, Fridays. There's always a test on Fridays. And it's designed to take about 20 minutes. And then I try to grade them, circle the ones they get wrong as quickly as possible, and get them back to them and have them do their test corrections that day. And which really is an exhausting day for me, by the way, because by the end of the day, like it turns what used to be an easy day, pass out a test and sit there, and then when they get done, then you got to grade into an exhausting day because you're calling them up when they're done. So you got to figure out how to manage that. But that's something that I found really works well for me. And I actually have kids that come in and they get excited about Friday's quiz. It's Quiz Friday. They're all excited about it, and I've never seen that before. Students get excited about taking a quiz, and they like that instant feedback that they get as well. So this one we kind of got into before. Students that are strong in math never have math anxiety. That one is a, what is that one? Yeah. That's a myth, right? Students can have math anxiety that are good in math. But the reverse is true as well. That students that are bad in math, it's not always because they have math anxiety, right? So the problem with that is that the information that I give, it's not unfortunately going to help students that are just weak in math or behavior problems, because that's not math anxiety, right? And sometimes those two are connected. The weak in math students are the behavior problems because they don't want to actually try, because then their weakness shows. So we have to figure out a different plan for them. So this talk is focused on how can we get students to perform to their potential if they have math anxiety. And students that are bad in math, it's not always because they have math anxiety. There's some students that just don't care. They know they've had a pattern in the past of not doing well in math, and they just don't care. Or they know that they're not going on to college, which is fine, right? Not everybody has to go on to college, but they know that they're not going to need math for the job that they're going to do. At least they're not going to need a math class in college, right? They're just going to go on. And that happens as well. So there's all sorts of reasons why students perform badly in a math class. It's not always because of math anxiety.